both for coming out. I do want you to know that I'm going to follow the posted agenda. I know that many of you were here for our last item, but I would like to get through our daily business if you will first. And then we don't have to worry about time constraints if people want to speak. So beginning with that, public comment, did anyone sign in? Ms. Sprague, did anyone sign in for public comment? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on then to the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there any item that you would like to move? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving down to recognition, we have several recognitions tonight. Ms. Hors is going to be passing out the certificates. This is for one young lady who did a nice job of writing a short story and was recognized. And then the rest of them are our conservation committee and the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and a couple of volunteers that helped out at our Earth Day. So, Ms. Hors, would you like to go up and, I think one of the microphones is working unless you can use your speaking voice.
The first presentation goes to Julie Vieira. Julie's a student at Pontiac High School. Can you hear me? At Pontiac High School, and she participated in the Rhode Island short story competition. There were 150 submissions, and she was one of the judges selected. Her teacher at Pontiac, Mrs. Ferrier, encouraged her to participate. And Julie's father wanted us to know that she's an avid writer and a very high achieving student. Currently, she is ranked number 3 out of 200 in her class with a GPA of 4.59, very impressive. She's a hard worker and always strives to obtain her best academically. Julie, are you here? Next, we have the participants in helping to clean the roads on birthday and Foster. And the first one is World's Best Tiger, Connor Stockwell. World's Best Weebles, Joshua Stockwell. World's Best Tiger, Donald Mara. World's Best Weeblos, Rupert Pollard. World's Best Daisy, Aaliyah Sacco. World's Best Brownie, Gianna Cato. World's Best Brownie, Haley Quinn. World's Best Daisy, Reagan Jeffrey. World's Best Brownie, Sienna Pollard. World's Best Daisy, Victoria Kafka. Not here? World's Best Brownie, Kaylee Piccolo. World's Best Leader, Kristen Sackle. Well, you don't look like Kristen, but.
She's at work with it.
Well, thank you and thank her. World's Best Brownie, Reagan Rawcliffe. Not here? World's Best Brownie, Sonia White. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Logan Smith. I don't like this. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Nick Clark. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Simon Ashman. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Connor McCabe. I don't know where to look to find out. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Ethan Turcotte. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Logan Dutra. Congratulations. World's Best Volunteer, Justice Smith. Did you volunteer?
You can't get any cuter than that.
World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Wyatt Smith. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, John Terrell. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Eric Ashman. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Noah Sackle. Oh, no, I'm not. I was just thinking, you don't want to know my thought. I think how many kids there are at each name.
Yeah.
Foster Cub Scouts, World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Austin Smith. World's Best Volunteer, Noah Vieira. They're doing this right, they get the volunteers younger and younger. World's Best Foster Cub Scouts 101, Connor Turcotte. participation on the Conservation Committee, Kathleen Collins. Ed Chernow. Tony McButt. Yeah, Dennis Theron. Nikki LaMonica. David Rathman. Michelle Potter. Louis Vinagro. Thank you all for your helping the town on Earth Day, all of you young people. It's great to see so many of you out, the volunteers coming up. Parents are doing something right, really right. Thank you. And for all of you on
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. The next item is second-hand and holiday sales license for Lisa M. Johnston for Old Man Mercantile and Antiques located at 62 Danielson Pike, Building A. This is a public hearing. The applicant will be able to present the application first. It is the applicant's burden to present evidence to support his or her request. The presentation must be clear and to the point. After the applicant has completed her presentation and the council has asked any questions to their satisfaction, the hearing will be open to the public. Both proponents and opponents of the proposal will be allowed to speak. Proponents first and followed by the opponents. Any person who wishes to speak will go to the microphone, provide his or her name and address. All questions and statements must be addressed to the council. There will be no crosstalk in the audience. Lisa, do you want to stop?
Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm really happy that I had so much turnout for my little business. I have to say, it's right in front of the gun shop. It's antiques and secondhand stuff. If you've noticed, if you've driven down Route 6, you've probably noticed the bake shop isn't really looking like the bake shop anymore. And as far as what I'm going to be selling is antiques, secondhand items, miscellaneous collectibles, and whatnot. That's about it.
Thank you. Anyone on the council has anything to say or any questions to ask of
You said it's holidays, right?
And it's holidays as well, yes.
Yes, second-hand and holiday licenses.
It looks great, Lisa.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion, we accept this application.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Lisa. Yes. Wright's Auto Salvage is our next old business. As you know, that is a business that's on Mill Road, whose license has been revoked. We have asked that they remove the vehicles that are there. The state has contacted us and has asked that the town approve the activity that is going on. Evidently, is Mr. Ritchie here tonight? Is there a representative of Mr. Ritchie tonight?
I spoke to the attorney earlier today.
Okay. Do you want to
Yeah, okay.
shed?
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
I spoke to Mr. Ritchie's attorney. I told him there was no need to be here tonight as far as the attorney was concerned. He thought his client was going to be here. What I told him and what the council, I'm going to recommend to the council, I talked to Mr. Restivo as well about the situation that abuts his property, is that this is an ongoing zoning violation. He is not being issued a new license. The state is, as far as I'm concerned, is wrong in saying Foster has to issue another license. There's case law against that point. All he's doing is remediating a problem that he created. So consequently, he's got to remove the vehicles from the property. I told his attorney today that he can't be deconstructing any cars on the property and like selling pots, and as well as he can't let any more hazardous waste go into the ground that would potentially affect Mr. Restivo's property. So the attorney was in agreement with that. So I think my recommendation to the council is that you take a vote that you're going to require that he continue to remediate the zoning violation, continue to remove the vehicles, but not start taking cars apart or vehicles apart on the property, because that then would, at least by appearance, would look like he's selling parts. And you cannot do any of those type of activities any longer. And you will not grant or give him a temporary license as a state. And I think Mr. Restivo, does that pretty much go with what our conversation was, if he's still here?
Yeah, that
Is
was
it
it.
here?
Yep. Yep.
Does that work for you?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the motion would be that you're going to vote on continuing to require Mr. Ritchie to remediate the ongoing zoning violations by removing the vehicles from the property, but by not taking them apart. They have to be removed as a whole vehicle, or you can bring in a question. But that's what the motion is going to be. So just say.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Joe. Yes, discussion.
Is this, we had discussed before that he needed to remove vehicles down to the 500 that he was permitted, and then he could apply for his license.
No.
Is that still true? It's just done and he has to remediate the property? I just wasn't sure on that.
How long are we going to wait for him to do this? Are we
Well,
putting a timeline on this?
I don't think we are. I mean, I think we're just doing this. I think the state is more involved with the case now at the state level, but he's supposedly moving, I think, about 200 cars a month, is what I've been told. So if that's the case, he's got 2,000, so that's 10 months.
Well, he had 2,000 before. and
We
still
can't
at
hear.
2,000. He had 2,000 before and he's still at 2,000. I just want to make sure that this is going to happen in a
Right.
timely fashion.
And I talked to the attorney today. I'll reiterate that again. But, the state is monitoring it as well, and I believe, I'm sure they're gonna look at it as well.
And his attorney is in agreement with this?
I spoke to the attorney earlier today.
Any further questions? Yes, Mrs. Ryder.
Will the motion have an end date in it when you require?
That's what Cheryl had just
Right,
asked.
but will it?
No, not right
No.
now. This wasn't even going to be brought up tonight, except the state required it to be heard tonight, because he is removing the vehicles from the property, property, what we understand.
And the state is saying he can't remove them because he doesn't have a license. We do not want to give him a license. So we're making this motion that he has to remove those.
Per the zoning violation that he told me to do before.
Yes, sir. Could you state your name and?
Sure, David Violet. Will there be any prohibition on any sort of other processing? You mentioned selling car parts, but there's a lot of other processing that can be done on cars, scrap cars before they're moved. they could be shredded on site, they could be crushed, further
Well,
releasing toxics.
I don't think unless Mr. Estivo has an objection as to a butter, we had suggested to him before to bring in a crushing machine to crush those vehicles. He was always going to, but never did. And we were meeting with him pretty much on a monthly basis
Yes.
as council. That was the suggestion probably a year and a half ago, and he just never got around to doing it. So now he's being forced to do it, remove the vehicles by the state.
Yep, that's okay.
Going back to what I asked you, is there anything prohibiting us from putting an end date on it? Because I think we've given him enough leave, and I'd like to see him done. But then my second part of the question is, what happens when he's out of there? Then what happens?
Well, you're gonna have to, I think we should probably consider brownfield site, the property's gonna have to be remediated at that point.
By whom?
Well, I think you have to be by him.
We
Well,
think.
we'll have, you know what happens to those sites, they abandon the property. And then it's gonna be left to the state probably, because that's what they do for receivership. And then they can, they're gonna be the brownfield, they're gonna have to get out grants or something.
So is this motion tonight a formality that the state wants to see? We can't do anything that is contrary to what the state wants. We're just following.
They wanted us just to grant them a license to use the park, because of the deadline.
They did, but can we put one? We're making this in opposition to what they said. So what prohibits us from doing
Right,
it?
he can, and then- and after that-
Well, I think that we need to light a fire on him. And this isn't.
You didn't do it now, I don't.
I know,
We haven't lit fire under him?
Okay.
No. Much is a different.
Yeah, I think all you do is
and the state.
And now that the state is involved, thank you, Mr. Restivo, we seem to be, it's going faster, quicker, we hope. So there's been a motion, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good luck. Yes. I wrote it down. And I still was watching Simmons waiting. Thank you. We have transportation grants in front of us. It was brought before us at the financial town meeting. We've had some more questions. It is a grant that Carol Morrow, our Human Services, spent a lot of time on. So we're bringing it forward tonight to discuss. So Carol, the council members were here. Is there anything?
The question for the council at this point is whether you will vote to take the money, the matching money.
We cannot hear anything, and I have good hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Estivo. Would you please go to
Whoa, that's a shot over the bow.
I'm sorry.
No pun intended.
I am sorry, Mr. Estivo. Mr. Sabazio. Ms. Morrow is coming up to the front.
Okay, can you hear it?
Yes.
So the question for the council at this point is whether you folks would be willing to vote to take money out of the contingency fund for this current fiscal year to help fund a van that RIPTA is willing to put up most of the funds for. It's a 2019 Ford 9-passenger van to be used for senior transportation, non-medical, is what the grant is that I had proposed. Representative Chippendale has been working with RIPTA on getting us that van. RIPTA is willing to give it to us, but they want us to put up a 20% match, which would be $18,000. I received an email from Mr. Chippendale that said that it could be reduced to as low as $13,000. I had checked with Kelly, there is money in the current contingency fund, so I'm asking the town council if we can take those funds as needed, somewhere between $13,000 and $18,000, hopefully closer to the 13, to get this $90,000 van so that we can provide transportation to our elders to go for things like shopping, hair appointments, banking, the post office, the library, that sort of thing. It would be, the way the grant is written right now, we have funding to run the van once a week, or we will have funding to run the van once a week. So we just need the money to come from you folks, so we can do that.
What's the pleasure of the council before we open the discussion?
I move that we take the money out of the contingency fund not to exceed 18,000.
Second.
Discussion.
I had a question. I had sent a message to you, I don't know if you saw it. I also asked Bob, was it today? Yesterday. For the driver, does the driver have to have a CDL? What are the qualifications for the driver? I looked at the contract and I didn't know, because I had received a message, actually a phone call from someone who was a former bus driver who's volunteering, and I was just wondering if they needed to have a CDL.
They don't have to have CDL, they have to have.
Chauffeurs.
Thank you. Now, that's okay.
Have to
They
have
don't have to
chauffeurs.
have CDL, they have to have chauffeurs.
Well, we're responsible for the driver.
The way the grant is written is that the grant will pay for the hours that the driver would be working.
I had sent you several questions regarding the driver. Like, we do the hiring.
We do the hiring.
We do the hiring.
And we would do that with HR.
Okay, and do they have to have any special training besides the chauffeur license?
No,
For instance, CPR training?
It's not required, but it's recommended.
And this has got a 5-year lien, am I correct? We have a 1-year grant, possibly for a second year, but then 3 years without a grant at this time.
At this time, correct. The lien, the 5-year lien is with RIPTA, because they don't want to give us a $90,000 van and have us turn around and just sell it for a profit.
So do you have a projected of what the third, fourth, and fifth year would cost?
I would assume pretty much the same thing as it's costing now, unless we have like some kind of a huge surge in finance, I don't know. I'm not a financial person, so I don't really know, but similar to what it is now.
So what are they projecting for now?
Right now, I have $10,860 that they have approved and that pays for the driver, it pays for the insurance of adding the driver, it pays for the gas, it pays for the maintenance, and it pays for additional time for my time to coordinate this.
So we have an administration.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Who services it?
Our DPW would, but getting a for 2019 van, we're pretty lucky that there probably shouldn't be much maintenance, and it should be under warranty.
Right, right. Any further questions? Kelly, do you have anything you want to interject?
The only thing I'm concerned about is if we don't have enough money in the contingency with ongoing litigation, that we would take the rest of the money from the capital.
So, because it was approved at the capital.
It was approved at the financial town meeting, so if we could just include that in the motion.
So could we amend that?
So amended.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Oh, excuse me. You came specifically for tonight. Would you like to say anything?
Well, I'm at your pleasure. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer, but I don't want to repeat what Carol said. She's done most of the work on this and certainly has her finger on the pulse of the whole thing. We're here to support the town through grants, through anything we can do to ensure that you're able to continue to run the bus. Clearly, it's something our town desperately needs. We haven't had RIPTA service in decades, and try as I may, they're not going to extend it to us. We just don't have the ridership. So I think this is a feasible means of getting around that, and as long as the council sees it as something we can support, I fully encourage it.
Thank you. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Aye. We did. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All in favor of the amendment? Aye. Opposed? All in favor of the main motion? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Carol. Thank you.
Nice job.
Yes. Yes, and thank you, Representative Dale. The next thing we have is a request to use the fairgrounds on July 17th and August 14th. That's for the recreation food truck. Recreation is putting this on. The food trucks that go into Situate, coming out here to us twice this summer, and we're going to see how that works out for us. Do we have a motion to allow the recreation committee?
I make a motion, we let the recreation committee use the fairgrounds. Oh, whatever you want to call it.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, oh, yes, Mrs. Ryder.
Initially, when this was brought forward, there was some question about whether liquor could be served. Was
There's not
that?
going to be any alcohol.
Okay, that was decided.
Yep, okay, that was decided, thank you. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we're to the Second Amendment sanctuary. Before we begin, I have a couple of things that I would like to announce. I will accept a motion to approve the resolution. As all motions are made in the positive, I expect it to be in the positive. Both proponents and opponents of the resolution will be allowed to speak. Proponents first, followed by opponents. I will recognize the council members first, then members of the audience. Any person who wishes to speak will go to the microphone provided, his name or her name and address. All questions and statements must be addressed to the council president. There will be no crosstalk in the audience. There will be a 3-minute time limit. You are cautioned to avoid repetitious or irrelevant comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed. Once you have all been heard, the council will wrap it up and make their vote. Any questions on those? Hearing none, I will, what is the pleasure of the council? Yep, if you'd like
I
to.
don't think everybody wants to, or I think I might need that though, because I don't know if I can reach everybody back there. Can you hear me?
No.
Okay.
Um,
Oh my goodness. Okay. See if I can do this without glasses. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, this is Resolution 2019-06. Resolution of the Foster Town Council, subject Second Amendment Sanctuary Town Resolution. That the Town of Foster, the town, adopts a Second Amendment Sanctuary Town Resolution as follows. Whereas the Town of Foster's Town Council, pursuant to Rhode Island statute and the Town of Foster's charter, is vested with the authority of administering the affairs of the Town of Foster. And whereas the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, adopted in 1791 as part of the Bill of Rights, protects the inalienable rights and individual rights of the people to keep and bear arms. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in District of Columbia versus Heller, 554 U.S. 570, 2008, affirmed an individual's right to possess firearms unconnected with service in a militia for traditionally lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in McDonald versus Chicago, 561 U.S. 742, 2010, affirmed that the right of an individual to keep and bear arms as protected under the Second Amendment is incorporated by the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment and it is applicable to the states. And whereas the United States Supreme Court in United States versus Miller, 307 U.S. 174, 1939, opined that firearms that are part of ordinary military equipment or with use that could contribute to the common defense are protected by the Second Amendment. And whereas Article 1, Section 22 of the Rhode Island Constitution provides that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And whereas Article 1, Section 6 of the Rhode Island Constitution provides that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, papers, and possessions against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue, but on complaint and writing upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and describing as nearly as many as may be
the place to be searched, and the persons or things to be seized. And whereas Rhode Island law requires in-state residency, background checks, an 8-day waiting period, and a Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management pistol revolver certification, or blue card, for handgun purchases. And whereas Rhode Island law prohibits all gun purchases, 1, on behalf of another person, or 2, for anyone under indictment or convicted of a felony, or of any crime for which said person could be imprisoned for more than 1 year, or 3, for anyone who is a fugitive from justice, or 4, for any unlawful user of or addicted to marijuana or any depressant, stimulant, narcotic drug, or any controlled substance, regardless of whether it has been legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes. Or 5, for anyone adjudicated as a mental defective or has ever been committed to a mental institution. Or 6, for anyone who has been discharged from the armed forces under dishonorable conditions. Or 7, for anyone who is subject to a court order restraining said person from harassing, stalking, or threatening their child or intimate partner or child of such partner. Or 8, for anyone who has been convicted in any court of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence. Or 9, for anyone who has renounced their United States citizenship. Or 10, for anyone who is an alien illegally or unlawfully in the United States. And whereas it is the desire of the Foster Town Council to declare its support of the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and to the provisions of the Rhode Island Constitution, which protect the town's citizens inalienable and individual rights to keep and bear arms. And whereas the Foster Town Council members each took an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution and the Rhode Island Constitution and the laws of the state of Rhode Island, which are not deemed unconstitutional by a court of competent jurisdiction in the charter of the town of Foster. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Foster Town Council that the town of Foster be and hereby is declared to be a Second Amendment sanctuary town. Be it further resolved that the Foster Town Council affirms its support for the Foster Police Department to exercise sound discretion when enforcing laws impacting the right of citizens under the Second Amendment. Be it further resolved that the Foster Town Council will not appropriate funds for the capital construction of building space or purchase of storage systems to store weapons seized pursuant to the requirements set forth in any legislation if such bill is enacted by the Rhode Island General Assembly and/or for the purpose of enforcing any other law that unconstitutionally infringes upon the right of the people of the town of Foster to keep and bear arms. And that it's adopted this 9th day of May, 2019, Foster Town Council.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve this resolution.
Discussion. I'll recognize the council first. Is there anyone on the council who would like to support? Any comments made? I will make one. I attended West Greenwich's meeting last night, and a Brenda Jacob stood up and spoke. She represents the Rhode Island Revolver and Rifle Association. I spoke to her afterwards. I thought she brought out some very good points that I myself hadn't thought of. She sent me an email with those points, and I would just like to bring them out. That the one thing that I really took point to was that the language of the bill states that the police department, where the person resides, to not only enforce these laws, but to certify compliance, handle registration, and store firearms that have been confiscated, surrendered, or forfeited. This is what the laws are. There are 2 bills that are in right now. They are House Bill 5739 and House Bill 5741. So they say that in many cases, up to 4 copies of this paper needs to be sent to the state police, the attorney general, town clerk, and residents. We have a very small police department here. For our police to have to do this, it's one more thing that they have to do. Our town budget is very tight. If you were at the financial town meeting on Tuesday night, you know it's very tight. It's just one more thing that the state is telling us we have to do. But they don't give us any support for that. I think this was, as it was pointed out last night, I think this is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, taking this away from us, our rights to keep our guns. I feel strongly about this, and I am in support of it. Is there anyone else on the council that would like to say?
I'll say something else. I think I made this, because I can't yell.
I get it.
I get it. I'm obviously in support of this, and this is kind of personal to me. I grew up in Gloucester. My stepfather was a state police officer, so I grew up around guns. My brothers were hunters, some military, so guns were nothing that was scary to me as a kid. In April of last year, my son was actually the victim of a shooting, and just what's happened since then with the process in the courts and the pre-trials, it's been a year, and he was shot through the back window of his truck while he was driving. He was injured, and we're going to court, and recently the judge made an offer of 1 year to serve. First of all, this person was, he had $20,000 bail. They reduced with surety, so it was $2,000. Then he couldn't make that bail after 2 months, so they reduced it to $500. $500 to get out of jail for shooting someone. So recently, we found out that the judge made an offer for 1 year to serve, less the time served when he was arrested, which was 2 months. Basically, he'll end up maybe serving 6 months, maybe, for shooting someone, driving away with a double-barrel shotgun, leaving buckshot in my kid's back. So I don't think that we should be imposing more restrictions on law-abiding gun owners. I think if we're going to do something at the State House, we ought to impose tougher penalties, tougher sentences for people, criminals, who misuse guns. So I'm in support.
Anyone else on the council in favor? Opposed? Ms. Horace?
I totally agree with what Heidi said at the end. Tougher penalties should be imposed on people who commit these crimes, no doubt about it. Secondly, I grew up with guns. My brother-in-law was a state policeman. I believe this puts our police officers right smack in the middle of this argument. There's no win for them at all. They can't take a side, and they are going, if they act on this, which isn't going to be law, it's just it's a recommendation that we're making to the State House. If they acted on that, they're going to be in violation of the law. And I don't think that's fair to put them there. And secondly, I think that I don't even know how to say it. I think that these kinds of things that are in opposition to everything that's going on in the State House, and believe me, I don't like a lot of the stuff that goes on there. And we should act in opposition when we feel strongly. And I see so many of you do, and that's your right. I feel strongly the other way. I think that this puts a spotlight on our small towns, because it's going to be the small towns that are going to vote on this sanctuary. And it's going to say, the people of Western Rhode Island out there in the picks and the sticks where we are. Here they are, gun toting. This is what they believe in, these are the things they stand for. It isn't all you believe in, it isn't all I believe in. And I hate labels of any kind. And I don't like to see more labels put on our town. It might be a small argument, but it is an argument, and it is the way we're perceived. And that isn't who we are. I don't want my gun taken away from me. My father, if he were here, wouldn't want it. But I don't believe this is gonna pass, number one. And number two, I don't think that is the intent. And that's, I don't believe in this sanctuary.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council that would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, I will open it to the public. I will ask that you please come to the microphone. I'm taking those in favor first. Come to the microphone, state your name and address. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Dan McDonough, resident of Hope, Rhode Island, Cranston. And basically I wanted to mainly address, because I know some people got doubts, because I heard them from other towns, that sanctuaries don't mean nothing, this is nothing but a feel-good thing, but I just want to reiterate history. Right where we all reside today, 250 years ago, over 250 years ago, this state led the world in what liberty is. You know, right here in Rhode Island, the sanctuary, for example, people say sanctuary is a feel-good thing, a resolution is a feel-good thing. Right here in Rhode Island, Roger Williams created a safe haven, a sanctuary, if you will, from British tyranny. You could come here, be a Christian, be a Puritan, whatever religion you want, and you weren't allowed to carry your firearms without the British confiscating them, and no taxation or representation. So where did that lead? To this greatest nation today. So now people say a resolution. Resolutions don't mean nothing, it's just a feel-good thing. But the historical intrinsic value movement, a resolution does mean something. A resolution created the Declaration of Independence. The resolution created the greatest document in the history of mankind. What we all swear today is called the Constitution for the United States of America. And I understand you're a great man and the police officers, but there is, we all want to follow the law, absolutely. But here's the whole situation. Now, if the governor says, all right, tomorrow I want all weapons confiscated, she makes it a law. The Constitution, however, states any law that's repugnant to that automatically becomes null and void. She could have it law all day long. But these officers, I took a sworn oath, and I'm sure all of you took a sworn oath on the Constitution first. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So basically, the police officers are saying, all right, do I honor the government's tyrannical law, or do I honor the oath I took on, and I'm sure these guys served in the military as well. So they're going to be, either way, regardless, they're going to be put in a position, if this resolution passes or not, to honor their oath or honor our tyrannical law. And I'm 100% sure these gentlemen here, they're going to honor the oath they take. They took and defended this country and this great power man. They're risking their lives every day to defend this town, our liberties and everything else. So I'm asking the town council, and I know you're concerned, man, I really do, but please understand, resolution is very important to this history, the whole country. I mean, we here in Rhode Island, a lot of people don't really absorb that well. Here in Rhode Island, we led the entire country against tyranny. And unfortunately, we got to do that again. It's unfortunate, I understand, and I know about spotlights and everything and titles, but history, I will finish with this. History only remembers two kinds of people. People who were tyrants, who seek to destroy liberty, you read all the history books, and two, people who stood and risked everything they had, no matter if they get labor war, whatever the cause was. The history remembers people who stood for liberty and freedom. That's the only two people history remembers. So I ask you, all due respect, whatever, I ask you, please, I want you in your name, because someday when you write the history books of these times, okay, I want every one of your names to generate that history. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. I'd like to just point out one thing. Our police officers are staying very neutral in town, so I do want you to know that. Okay, thank you.
My name is Walter May, Anthony Road.
Could you pull it up and not hear you all?
And my other wife, In another life, I was in special operations. And one of my assignments, I was assigned as an intelligence officer. I went to Fort Hollywood, Maryland, to intelligence school. And at Fort Hollywood, we got into the long-range strategic plans of the Soviet Union. And part of the long-range strategic plans of the Soviet Union was that they were very concerned about invading the United States of America. The reason that they were concerned was that after they conquered the United States military, they would have to fight an armed conflict across the United States because we were now a nation. And every time we do something to reduce our capability to carry arms by private citizens, we enhance the long-range strategic plans of our enemies. I'm not a member of the NRA and I don't belong to a gun club, but I'm still an American. Thank you.
I'm going to take a little bit more than 3 minutes, but while I'm discussing something, I just want you guys to just look at this for a minute, hand it down. Just look at that, hand it down. Some of you know what it is, some of you won't know what it is. But I'll dovetail to that at the end of my story in a minute. So, I'm also a member, as my wife explained, that my son was shot in the back in April. You would think I'd want more stringent gun laws, but no. Along the same reason as her, I think the state has plenty of laws on the books, and we're just not enforcing them enough. We're letting these people go, but they want to turn around and they want to start going after because they need to find an answer. And they won't listen to the answer, if we know what the answer is, but they'll turn around to try and say, we got to do something, is they'll stop making more laws. Now, a resolution is simply a resolution. It holds no binding weighting law and everything else. So some of this is pretty much semantics. But if you're going to say we're going to have to enforce things, I just put something on the table for you to look at. Now, let's say, and this has happened before, there's been an accident in front of somebody's house, and maybe it's in the winter, and the person's cold, and they go outside and say, come on into my house, it's nice and warm in here, we're going to call a rescue, we're going to call a police department. You all right? Yeah, I'm all right. Well, let's stay in a nice warm house. And that little piece of plastic that I just gave you is sitting on top of the countertop or sitting on top of the kitchen table. And Officer Tyler shows up, and he may know that person because he's worked in the town 10 years. Close enough. It may be a volunteer firefighter. It may be a DPW worker. It may be somebody on the planning board. But he goes into that house because he was called because there was an accident. And he sees that piece of plastic sitting on the kitchen table. You know what that piece of plastic will be if it gets passed up to the state house? That piece of plastic, if you want to make sure they uphold the law shut, will force that person in that house to be charged with a felony. Criminal up to 10 years in jail, almost. Now remember, the kid that shot my son is only going to get a year. But if we pass them laws, and then we finally realize, you know what, we really got to stop being tough on the real bad guys. That means all the laws, you can't pick and choose. So it is important that we do fight these bills when we show up, because Officer Tyler may have to arrest somebody in this room that he's known for a long time, and he knows he ain't a criminal. He knows he's an upstanding guy. And that guy's gonna be charged with a felony, 10 years in jail, and probably $15,000 fine. So this is important we bring this up. So when they finally figure out we gotta get tough with the real reasons, these people are the ones that are also gonna have tough too, because you can't pick and choose. So it's where we make a stand. And there is a lot of sections in the Rhode Island Constitution, probably one of the most shortest and poignant ones is Article 1, Section 22, that you guys quoted in your resolution. And I don't want to, it's only about 6 and a half long, and it's simple. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's probably the shortest thing of all this Rhode Island State Constitution. So I hope by that little presentation I gave you on the table, you'll understand where this state is going. So we have to make a stand, and we got to stop this. And this, you have the governor that said they should lobby the State House. This is true lobbying right here on a local level. Thank you very much.
name's Tim Baxter, resident right here in Gloucester, and I'm not going to take a lot of your time. I appreciate you people staying late at night and hearing what we have to say. I just want to be recognized to say, much like the Rogers, I don't believe that the laws should be punitive to affect the law-abiding citizens. I think laws should have consequences for those who break them, and I believe we have sufficient laws on the books to guard against the same crimes that they're talking about, either further restricting and making felons out of normally law-abiding citizens. The people with concealed carry permits, they are vetted. They go through extensive background checks. You people know. The police department here in Foster does a great job. The police departments across the state do a great job to make sure that people that go through the process have thorough background checks. So we're talking about people that are willingly conforming to the law. We're not talking about people that wake up in the morning and think about how to game the system and break the law. So I just ask that you help us support the law-abiding citizen and don't further restrict us by passing punitive laws that would do so. And I appreciate the support of the resolution, and I'm proud to be a Foster resident by you guys actually proposing it. So, thank you very much.
I'm Bob Salisbury. I'm from Moosup Valley. I'm a lifelong resident of Foster. About the only thing that could get me up in front of a microphone in front of people is the Second Amendment. And I'm not political in any sense of the word, but the only thing that, one of the only things that I will vote for a person for or against them for is their stance on the Second Amendment. I believe that that gives us the right to protect every other right we have, and that's exactly what it's there for. And that's why I vote for people and why I don't vote for people. Thank
you. I'm Dave Lyon, I live on Boswell Trail in Foster. Two things I want to say. First of all, Rhode Island has, I believe, the 6th strictest gun laws in the Union already, so I don't see a need. This is a declaration to the State House that we feel that gun laws are sufficient. Second of all, I have a collection of World War II firearms, most of which I left as inheritance. And this kind of resolution would mean that part of my life, or my family, would be taken away. So, think about it from that angle as well. Thank you.
So as a man of my own convictions, I enjoyed Councilwoman Heidi as she read that very difficult word even for myself to say, unalienable. So what that actually means, at least to me and many others, is actually a right that was granted by something higher than people. It was given to us far beyond an individual handing us a right. And that is the lifeblood, or like lifeblood of what the Constitution means, especially to me. And I think that every resident here in Foster is actually watching each and every one of you to see how you all vote on this, because this protects us. And this protects us even in the sense that it might be just a resolution, but we're going to watch how each and every one of you votes to protect us. And we're all going to vote ourselves in the upcoming years to ensure that we keep putting the right people in your seats to keep defending our rights. Thank you all.
I'm going to let I'm going to let the next two gentlemen speak, and then I'm going to ask those that are opposed to come up and speak. Okay, thank you.
My name is Leonard Watson. I'm a native-born Rhode Islander, although I now reside in Hemlock Village for about the last 7 years. And I agree with this young lady here that we don't need more stuff, but we have to stop them in the arms of the bad people. When I was in the service, spent a lot of time overseas, And when I was in the service back in the late 50s, the early 60s, in Turkey, if you was caught, there was a lot of bars. And of course, being in the service, you knew them all. But at every corner, there was a cop. There was a bar on that street. And when you come out of the bar, and this went for the locals too, it wasn't just servicemen, but it was their country's law. You come out of the bar, a cop would stop you when you got to the stop site and smell your breath. If he smelled liquor on it, he was immediately transferred to the police station. In the morning, he was put up before the firing squad, he was shot, and then your body was sent back to the respective people, either the base or the people. That was the law, there was no difference. I know that's hard. I mean, you have one beer and somebody smells breath, but there was no drunk driving in Turkey. And so today we have to face the reality of, do we make hard decisions or do we go with the flow? And I understand that I'm an old man and times change, progress expects change, but there are some things that cannot change. And the safety of our children, our citizenship, is to me the most important thing there is. And so when you go to the polls this year and you vote, if a man is running and you know that the most important thing to him is a vote, then vote for the guy that is representing you for you. And it's just so important, and I can only relate. I used to be a big smoker. I don't smoke anymore. I haven't in years for one reason, and I know some will agree, some will disagree, but I think it hits the point of where your hard choices are. I loved my wife. She never smoked. She died of cancer. I don't know if it was my smoking, but secondhand smoke has been proven to be a bad thing. And I just would like to say that the same way with the gun control laws, the representatives are looking for votes, they're not interested in us. Right now, there is no punishment for people in America if you're a criminal, only if you're a victim. The criminals are either sick or diseased or they have a problem and they always get away. The victim lives with it forever. So it's like smoking. If that cigarette to anybody that's still smoking is more important between your lips than your child or your wife's life, then there is no possible way you can make me believe that you love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did a little research on,
Would you give us your name and address, please? Thank you.
Stephen Natariani, 37 Jupiter Road, Boston. I did a little research on the right of the people to keep and bear arms from not being infringed. They used to talk in British common law, and today that means infringe means violate. And in World War II, they had people's militia because we sent so many back home dead and wounded that they had to call the people's militia out to watch the shores. They had their guns, their ammo, and they even gave them ammo if they didn't have it, and they watched the shores. And so we still had, at that time, a people's militia. And 2 subs were sank in Narragansett Bay due to their lookout. And it's in our forefathers' time, it's the same in our time. We have tyranny and oppression. Somebody trying to tell us what to do, well, we know what's wrong. So it's one of them things that it could just, or it could go the other way. Because it's like a tinderbox right now. I'm not saying it's that far, it's close. And police having a sanctuary, you have your guns, and if something happens, you know, invasion or whatever, 'cause the Democrats that have sanctuaries, I'm not saying all Democrats are bad, don't get me wrong, but all the governors that have sanctuaries, they're using them sanctuaries to get votes, so there'll always be a Democrat in office. And last year, I read several times that we paid $271 million to a sanctuary that gets more than we could ever get. We can't even get some of the stuff they get. Because, you know, you make over a certain amount, you don't get Medicaid, you just get Medicare and Social Security. And Rhode Island is the only state in the country that in their constitution has it written just the way it is in the American Constitution. The right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed, which means violated. I just wanted to let you know, and it's a good thing to have it, you have some protection in the sanctuary. Because I don't think Governor Raimondo's going to send a National Guard in here when she's got an illegal sanctuary of her own. Yeah. Using our tax money to fund it.
Thank you. I will now open the floor to those opposed from the audience. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Would you state your name and address, please?
Hi, I'm Lauren Nidell Gresh. I live in Gloucester on 10th Street. First of all, it is very intimidating up here, even though I ran for office. We know where people stand in the town. I certainly know where people stand in the district. I've spoken to a lot of people over the phone. I canvassed everybody in Gloucester. I know where people's hearts are. I understand where everybody's coming from. But this resolution is really poorly conceived. And there's so many reasons why, and if you don't mind, since I'm the only one here, I'd like to go through kind of some of the things that I
There
heard
are
today.
several people here that would like to speak. They didn't stand up in line, but they're on.
Okay.
I can see their faces.
Okay, great. A couple things that I'd like to address. First of all, no one is taking away anybody's guns. There's a grandfather's clause in any of the bills that are in the General Assembly right now, so nobody's guns are going to be taken away. Secondly, this is not a sanctuary state. There is, I think, maybe just Providence that was declared a sanctuary city. There are no states that are sanctuary states. Individual mayors have gone ahead and done that. All the bills right now in the General Assembly are basically in committee. So they're just being studied. There is none of these bills are probably even going to make it out of the committee to be voted on by the full General Assembly. I would recommend that if any of these bills that people are concerned of are voted out of General Assembly and voted on, that's when you have a, then you can make a resolution that you are against this particular bill that has been approved. So I think there's a lot of misguidedness and misconceptions over what is in the General Assembly, the bills that are being, that are out there. And I think it's important for people to know the facts. The second, one of the other points I wanted to make is that who has read the resolution besides people here when it was read too? And it was brought out. People will see in northwestern Rhode Island, sanctuary city, Second Amendment sanctuary city. What happens if somebody comes to the town that hasn't read the resolution, doesn't know that it really is just kind of a nuanced guideline of what the town would like to be and how they feel that the Second Amendment should interrelate within people's lives. What if they say, well, this is sanctuary city, I can go to Old Home Days, or in my town, I can go to Ancients and Horribles, bring my gun, and, have open carry. Who is going to read the resolution? This is true. Who is going to read the resolution? The resolution can be easily misinterpreted, as everybody here has a different interpretation of what the resolution is. I've heard everybody say different things about it and not read actually what is in the resolution, which is basically just saying, preferably we would like to say that we're, as a sanctuary city, that we still have to follow all the guidelines of the state. The police still have to follow all the guidelines that the state has allowed for the to uphold laws. The police can't have discretionary say, well, I don't want to follow this Second Amendment bill because we're a sanctuary town here. So the whole purpose of this is really just to divide the towns up. So we know, like was said, I'm not going to vote for this person if this person is against this resolution. It's a divide and conquer mechanism. It is not something that was organic to the state. These resolutions are an agenda item of a far right-wing organization that's spreading across this country and hitting the smaller towns like ours, like Gloucester, like Foster, like West Greenwich, like Hopkinton. And it's...
Excuse me, I'm going to stop you now so that other people can speak and you have time for me.
Thank
So,
you. And I just
so
want
much.
to, say again, totally against.
Thank you. Mrs. Ryder.
Hi, Lynn Ryder. First of all, I didn't see on the agenda that this is a debate about the Second Amendment. And I would just like clarification of one thing. And that is, by passing this, and I am a supporter of guns, I am a supporter of the Second Amendment, but when I read this, if this council should vote to approve, I just want clarification that if they do that, they are declaring that despite what our charter says, both for themselves and for our police department, where they are supposed to uphold the statutes of the state, they are declaring that they will not uphold the statutes of the state. They will not encourage, but they will not require their police department to uphold the statutes of the state. And that you will be behind your police department financially and legally should something hit the fan. Because I've had many people say, friends, they say, well, what does it mean to be a sanctuary, Second Amendment sanctuary town? And I believe it's in the enforcement. It has nothing to do with the Second Amendment as far as, do you approve, do you not approve? It's will the town knowingly declare that they will not enforce state laws should they be written. My other comment, and I think Ms. Hawes had a very good one, is we are at the point, Foster's at the point where we're trying to develop and broaden our tax base with business. We hope to be able to tap into help from the state. Quite frankly, and it shouldn't be that one relies on the other, but I believe that she is right that this will just put Foster a little further off the path to getting any kind of support, monetary or any other kind, from the state of Rhode Island. And it's just a question, is this something you want to fall on your sword for?
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
David Violet, Gene Allen Road. I just have a question for comment. Are we talking about not enforcing state laws that the council and the police department deemed to be unconstitutional, or are you talking about federal laws as well? Such as bump stocks.
We're not talking about bump stocks or anything like that. What the thrust of the resolution is that, what the thrust of this resolution is the state is giving the town another mandate that they're not gonna fund. So what Foster is saying by this resolution is that if they're not gonna get any funds to go out and do this type of work, then the state's gonna have to provide them money to do that, to set this stuff up.
So if the state was willing to provide money, there would be no sanctuary city in Boston?
If the state's willing to provide money, possibility.
I don't think that's the case.
Why, don't think the state's gonna provide any money?
No, I don't think that's why this is up here for vote. I don't think it has anything to do with monetary.
Well, that's just my opinion, so I could be wrong.
I stated that I think our police department is worked very hard now. It's a small department. To add one more thing, and they're not going to give us money. Let's face it, they haven't given Foster or any of the other towns that, not Providence, if it's not Central Falls, if it's not Cranston, we're not getting the money. And I don't see it coming because we don't do a Second Amendment sanctuary.
I'm not really up here pro or against gun. I'm, I guess, here against the town council deciding which state laws they're going to follow and not follow, under the guise that there's a constitutionality appearance here, because I think the town council, and no offense to the town council or to the police department, shouldn't be deciding constitutionality. The Supreme Court decides constitutionality. There's already been an assault rifle ban at one point in time that was challenged multiple times, and none of those challenges were upheld. If it's illegal to have red flag laws, let that be brought up at the Supreme Court and shot down there. I mean, I just think this isn't real. I mean, this is not why this is being done, right? It's not about constitutionality or, nothing that's been proposed by the state has been deemed unconstitutional. So why is the town council making the police department decide on a case-by-case basis what it is and isn't constitutional? I mean, I don't think that falls within their purview. I don't think it falls within the purview of the town council either. Because, I mean, again, Second Amendment, this is not about the Second Amendment for me. I guess it's just, it seems like we're in this vicious cycle here where if we don't like the people in power, we're not going to follow their rules. You know, and right now the Democrats have the state, and they have for a long time, and I get that. Town of Foster is mostly Republican, and there's a level of frustration that they're not represented. And I understand that frustration, but I don't think that gives us the right to say, you know what, we're sick of not being represented, we're not going to follow your laws anymore. And that's what I see there. Again, for me, it's not about guns or not guns. I have no issues with assault rifles. Personally, I don't have an issue at all with the red flag laws that were passed, because I think it's self-enforcement, because the red flag laws in Rhode Island, the petitioner has to be part of law enforcement, right? It has to be a state or local law enforcement agency that brings forth the petition to the Superior Court. So it seems counterintuitive to say that we have to protect against that. If there's no basis to bring a petition to the Superior Court, then the police wouldn't have done it. If the local police brings it, so we're saying the local police is going to petition the court, get the rights, and then refuse to enforce those, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I just think that this is a slippery slope.
Thank you.
Motion question.
Thank you. I'll take a vote. We have a motion on the floor. Been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Sorry, I lost all your votes. Any future agenda items? Hearing none, I will take a motion to go into executive